So this is just a little demo run real quick through Zero Signal Supply Run. Kind of show you how the game works. When you first deal the game out, you shuffle the cards. This can be for 2 to 4 players, and you lay out a grid in a 4x4 pattern like this. And then players will take turns during the course of the game flipping over cards. It's the basic principle. There is a draw pile that's put over to one side, and room for a discard pile that we call the recycled pile, and the boneyard, which is basically like cards that are played and then removed from the game. So there's no chance that they'll get back into play, at least with any of the current rules. So what happens is at the beginning of the game, you determine who's going to go first. That person flips over a card to get things started. They have to start with a card at the edge, and then go ahead and flip it over. In this case, for example, this is a supply card. You'll notice that has a number in the corner, which is the number 4. Supplies are taken and put into your hand. So you would immediately put that in your hand. Those are point cards. All the red cards, which are supplies and food, when they come up, are point cards. And then you immediately replace that card with a new one. Since there's still no face-up cards at the beginning of the next player's turn, they can go ahead and select any card along the edge and turn it over. In this case, we got the 2 zombies. A zombie, when it turns up, has to stay on the board. Basically, this is the threat. During the supply run scenario, you are attempting to locate supplies in the city, food and supplies that qualify as points for you, and your team is trying to get what they can before the zombies overrun the area, which is represented by either 4 zombies in a row coming up orthogonally, which is horizontally or vertically. Diagonal doesn't count. So as you can see here, we got one up. Since the zombie showed up, it goes on to the other person's turn, the next person's turn. If this were a 2-player game, then it would pass back to me. If there is a face-up card on the board, then the next player has to select one that is adjacent to. And again, adjacent to means vertical or horizontal. So you can select any of the 3 cards that are adjacent to this one. Again, I picked a supply card, so I pick it up, if I can, and it goes into my hand. And then the next card comes out, again, and replaces it face down. The other player can then pick, again, any adjacent card, which they do, and they got a zombie. In the case of the ace, for example, every player immediately recycles 1 random card from their hand. Right now I've only got one of the 2 players has a hand, so I go ahead and randomly, I can mix them up and select if I feel like I can do it randomly, or allow the other person to select, the card, and one of them gets recycled. And then play continues like this for a while. If at any point there is an opportunity, this goes to the other player, they manage to finally get a card in their hand, an opportunity to pick up a weapon, or how about a food card in this case. A food card is pulled into your hoard, is what it's called, which you would keep face up near you because the hoard is always accessible. All the players at the table can see how many points you have in your hoard. The trade-off being that it doesn't have a limit. Unlike your hand, which can only have 5 cards, the hoard can grow to as many cards as you can manage to keep in it. At this point, the other person would pull a card again. They also got a food card. Hooray for them. And as you can see, play continues in this fashion, kind of gathering points. It isn't uncommon for players, if they think that they might have more points than the other person, to try to go ahead and force an ending and pull up enough zombies to close the game down, because at that point, you're coming out ahead, and that's the idea. You're going to go ahead and attract enough attention to the zombies that kind of rush in the area and keep them what's left out there that you might be able to gather later from falling into the hands of another camp. I'll go ahead and just kind of pull a couple cards so you can see them and see what it's like. Again, it has to be adjacent cards. Oh, that's a supply card. Sorry, that one goes in the hand. You'd think I'd know this by now since I designed the game. And as you can already tell, there's an inequity of what's building up. But since you don't necessarily know what is in each other's hand, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. In this case, I'd love to see some other kind of cards. So here's one of our specialty cards. Gold cards do something immediately when they pop up. This is a raid. It allows the person who pulled it up to immediately steal 1 random card from an opponent's hand. Again, not the hoard. It's from their hand. So the raid card does that for the hand. There's a card called Supply Run that does it for the hoard. Actually, this was a hoard. I apologize. The raid card does it for the hoard. There's a card called Supply Run that does it for the hand. This is immediately moved to the boneyard when that happens, and a new card is put into play. Now, just to kind of move things along, I'm going to see if I can find a card that exemplifies yet another rule. If a weapons card were pulled, let's pretend for a moment that this was a legal play, then a weapons card is immediately pulled into your hand as well. At any point on your turn, if you have a card that has the ability to be played, like a weapon or one of the rarer blue cards, which you may get a chance to see here, then that card can be played immediately, and or not immediately, excuse me, can be played at the beginning of your turn prior to picking a card from the grid. So weapon cards are useful because they can eliminate zombies. In this case, you notice that the value of 5 is equal to or greater than any 3 of the zombies that are out, so I could go ahead and pick one if I wanted to. If I had weapon cards that were of lesser value than a zombie I wanted to kill, but had 2 or more of them that added up to a greater value, then I could use more than one. In this case, I would go ahead and do this. That recycles the zombie, and the weapon goes to the boneyard. It's used up. And then a new card comes out. Since weapons can make a lot of noise, the new card comes out face up. And the face-up card then, as I'm the player that played the card, I can continue my turn. I can then choose that face-up card or flip over a new one. Often, obviously, weapons are useful, so unless my hand is full of points I don't want to discard, because like I said, you have a hand limit of 5, then it would go into my hand. And play continues in this fashion until you have a loss, generally speaking. Or not a loss, excuse me, an end-game scenario, that's what we call it. A point where you have 4 zombies in a row. If you were to pretend that those are all zombie cards, for example, and the 4th one comes up, game over. You count up your points, you total up the point cards that you have in your hoard and in your hand, and the highest point value wins. So that's a quick look at the basic play of a Zero Signal. In this play, we didn't get a chance to see a couple of cards, so I'm going to look for them real quick. Any of the aces all have some sort of special ability where the zombie forced an immediate discard, for example, the others go into your hand or your hoard like normal and can be treated as a point card, or they have the ability to be discarded, recycled, and force an opponent to recycle a random card from their hand or their hoard, depending on what it tells you. Heavy is a weapon card, kind of show you that one, that has special rules. It doesn't have a value of its own, but it can be played along with another weapon card to double the value. So that can be useful, especially when dealing with tougher zombies if you don't have heavier weapons. Just kind of looking through it here, as you can see, very proud of the look and feel of the game. Not all of the art is final, but everything you see here for the most part is an example of what we're going to end up with. The Zombie Lord adds a bonus to adjacent zombies. Again, adjacent is vertical and horizontal. And if I can pull one here, a blue card, for example, the bomb, where a bomb is, once you pull a blue card, you put it in your hand, just like any weapon card, for example. But the bomb is a special one where it has the discard symbol, meaning that it can be put in the boneyard to recycle a 4-card square. So let's say you're having zombies kind of pile up on you here, and you want to get rid of them. The bomb can be used to go bam, blammo, recycles all 4 of those cards. This goes into the boneyard. And even though bombs are kind of noisy, we figured it made more sense to go ahead. So there's a supply run card to go ahead and deal these out face down. There's some other specialty cards in there. You'll find all of the information on the Kickstarter page and in the rules document that kind of explains what they do. And as we get more expansions funded, then we'll be adding some new ones as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. That's a quick look at how Zero Signal Supply Run works. The first game in our Zero Signal line of zombie apocalypse game scenarios, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you feel like showing some support, feel free to pledge on the Kickstarter and get yourself a copy or 2, and get some for your friends as well. Thanks for checking it out.